Okay, welcome to the Guitar Show. This is Coffee Chat. Let me take a swig of my coffee. And today we're going to discuss a few things, but first of all let me just play you this beast here. This is an old guitar tone from the 1960s. I've got it through the new Free the Tone delay pedal, which is called a Future Factory, and it's really cool, it's really nice, adds a nice subtle sort of hi-fi 2290 style delay. Check this out. Okay, yeah, so check that out, that's the new delay pedal, and it's sounding really cool with this old Japanese guitar. It's really cool to have a Quirky. I was talking about this with my friend the other day, in fact this morning, we were just discussing how it's really cool to have like a bit of an oddball guitar with a tremolo, you know. I mean, I use this thing here quite a lot now because it just has a certain sound. It's great for production, for recording. But you know, even if you're just a hobbyist, a guitar player, it's just great to have in your sort of collection just a guitar with a kind of like a tremolo, like a Duesenberg or a Gretsch or even a Rickenbacker or something like that. Just something that's a little bit different, that makes you kind of think outside the box. And really, that's what this guitar does. Okay, so before we talk about our main subject today, I'd just like to say thanks for all your comments again. The history of guitar videos are proven to be quite popular, and most of the 99.9% of the comments are absolutely fantastic, so you know, thank you so much for that. I'm just kind of tweaking the kind of way I'm doing them at the moment. Yeah, I'm talking a little bit too fast. It's a hard one really, because I want the videos to be sort of quite small, and I don't want to come across as boring, because you know, my voice can be quite monotone, and if I talk slowly, too slowly, I'm going to send you all to sleep. You know, you're going to be listening, you're going to fall asleep, you know. So you know, I want the videos to kind of have a little bit of a pulse to them, you know. But no, thanks for all your suggestions. I'm definitely taking everything you say on board to make them better, you know. But they're really good fun to do. They do take a little bit of time. Okay, so on to the main subject of our discussion. Basically, my preference for the best guitar player in the Rolling Stones was Brian Jones. And the reason why I think Brian Jones was the best, there's a few reasons actually. The first reason is he was the founder of the band, you know. One of the things about him was that he actually founded the Rolling Stones. He'd gone to the Ealing Jazz and Blues Club here in London, and he had struck up a friendship with Alexis Cornet, who was in a band called the Blues Incorporated. This band featured many blues luminaries such as Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce, a lot of the famous, you know, Long John Baldry, all of those kind of guys sort of went, you know, and to the club and jammed with Alexis Cornet. And he kind of was the ambassador in England, or the UK, even more so than John Mayall. A lot of people think, maybe in America, you're thinking, oh, John Mayall was the godfather of the blues in the UK. Well, it wasn't. It was Alexis Cornet and Cyril Davis. Those two were kind of the guys from the inception of the British blues scene, you know. So Alexis Cornet had invited Brian Jones to come up and perform. What you've got to remember is, around that time, nobody played slide guitar. We've got to remember, in England around that time, especially London, nobody was playing slide guitar. Slide guitar and open tunings, you know, didn't exist. Nobody knew about that, you know. It was, you know, strumming chords on electric guitars, and maybe you'd learn a Hank Marvin tune. You know, so on and so forth. So around that time there was no kind of, you know, Ry Cooder around to go and check out. There was no Duane Allman to learn slide licks off. You know, Brian Jones listened to records by Robert Johnson and Elmore James, and that's how he picked up his country blues style. So here's a young kid playing country blues style, turns up at the Ealing Jazz and Blues Club in Ealing, in West London, and Alexis Cornet strikes up a friendship, invites him to play in the band. Then, of course, Jagger and Richards turn up at the club, start watching Brian Jones perform, this amazing guitar player. Brian Jones then decides to form a group and recruits Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. So, the Rolling Stones was formed with Brian Jones really as kind of the captain of the ship. And, he really knew the direction he was wanting to go in. He was playing slide guitar. And these guys, nobody had heard this music before the Rolling Stones had played it on Top of the Pops in the UK. It was, and there's not many people were listening to that kind of music in the UK. So Brian Jones was really ahead of his time. Another reason why Brian Jones was the best guitar player in the Rolling Stones, in my opinion, was because he actually brought an amazing amount of atmosphere and different sounds and ethnic sort of sounds and instruments to the Rolling Stones songs. I know Keith Richards and Mick Jagger had kind of struck up that songwriting partnership, and Brian Jones wasn't really part of that. He wasn't actually included in that. And I've even heard that there's been several songs where Brian Jones was kind of not really interested. He helped make them, and he played a big part in the actual writing of the song, but he didn't take any credit. So I think that's an important sort of point to make. So I've got my laptop up here. I'm just going to read off some of the instruments that he played. I mean, he played harmonica as well on quite a few of the early hits. He doubled up on piano and slide guitar. He played a variety of other instruments, particularly in the studio, including sitar on Street Fighting Man and Painted Black. He played organ on 2000 Man and Let's Spend the Night Together. He played marimba on Under My Thumb, Out of Time and Yesterday's Paper. He played recorder on Ruby Tuesday. Trumpet on Child of the Moon, Appalachian dulcimer on I Am Waiting and Lady Jane, and he also played oboe and saxophone on Dandelion. He played mellotron on several Stones tracks, including the single We Love You, The Satanic Majesty's Request and Beggar's Banquet. On his final recordings for the Stones, he used an auto harp on You've Got Silver. So it goes to show he was a really inventive guy. He also went to Morocco and actually recorded one of the first world music albums with some traditional Moroccan musicians, and also really influenced myself in my own sort of work in world music. So here's a guy that's bringing new sounds and kind of parts to songs that if you took those parts away, like for example the recorder in Ruby Tuesday, if you took that part out, it would really make a big difference. It was quite integral to the sound, like the catchy hook of the song. And you've got somebody like that can kind of think outside the box and bring something really interesting. And around that time, it was that psychedelic period, and Stones needed to be seen doing these kind of psychedelic songs and more, in line with kind of Beatles. And they were kind of like the edgy Beatles, a bit more of the rock and roll side, but they were still, marketed as a kind of a beat band, a pop group. Later, of course, Mick Taylor joined in, and we all know Mick Taylor is a fantastic blues guitar player in a way that Brian Jones wasn't. You've got to think Brian Jones was a country picker. He was a blues guitarist in the sense of a Mississippi Delta guitar player, such as Blind Boy Fuller, Blind Blake, Robert Johnson, Charlie Patton, those kind of guys that came from the Delta and finger-picked. That was where Brian Jones was coming from. Whereas Mick Taylor was coming from much more of an urban sort of Chicago blues sound, such as Otis Rush, B.B. King, and Freddie King in particular, and Albert King. And so that's where those two guitar players differed, and you can't really compare one with the other because they're coming from different angles. So that's quite an important thing to think about. And Mick Taylor obviously came in as just the blues guy, the young hotshot guitar player playing those nice blues licks. He wasn't required to write songs. He wasn't required to think about the production and the overall sound. Keith Richards was then fully in charge, really, as a kind of musical director, along with Mick Jagger. And Mick Taylor was just kind of a hired gun, really. So I think there's a big difference between those two guitar players. And then obviously you've got Ronnie Wood, and Ronnie Wood is he's kind of like a great guy to probably hang out and drink with, and he's a good guitar player, and I think Keith Richards had then discovered this kind of G tuning, you know, playing with 5 strings, more staccato style playing that he got off Raikuda. So with the kind of limited and sort of sparseness of Ronnie Wood's playing, didn't mean to say limited, but more kind of, you know, he wasn't playing strumming like Brian Jones was. He was more delicate with his strumming. And that kind of really worked with Keith Richards, the interplay between the 2 guitars. You got that classic later Rolling Stones sort of sound. So, you know, you've got these kind of 3 distinct eras, the kind of the early stuff which was really inventive, really creative, bringing in lots of ethnic sounds, world music. And then you got the middle period, which was very rootsy and bluesy because of Mick Taylor just playing straight blues licks and slide. And then you've got this later period, which is more of the party band, more of that, you know, the kind of real rock and roll party sort of vibe, you know. So for me personally, I prefer the original because, you know, I guess through nostalgia, you know, Brian Jones is part of the London blues scene, you know, from the inception, as was Mick Taylor, but you know, Brian Jones was really there at the beginning, and you know, he was an innovator, very innovative guitar player, really inventive. So for me, Brian Jones was much more of an influence on my style than Mick Taylor, because you know, what Brian Jones taught me was about songcraft, about production, about thinking outside the box, you know, trying to be creative. It's that kind of, you know, that you know, and maybe that was what drove him, you know, mad in the end with the drugs, was because, you know, he was really trying to reach beyond, you know, trying to capture something that was beyond just the normal, and maybe he felt that the answer was in psychedelic drugs, and he had to be out there in order to achieve that. Who knows? But I really think, you know, the Stones really lost something when they lost Brian Jones, and they became a different group. Me personally, I preferred it with Brian Jones, like you probably prefer it with Mick Taylor or maybe Ronnie Wood. So it'd be great to get your comments and tell me which Rolling Stones you prefer, Brian Jones, Mick Taylor and Ronnie Wood, and tell me why you like them, you know, and tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm totally off the ball, you know. And what about Keith Richards? Let's not forget about Keith Richards, because although his early soloing wasn't great, later on he came up with some really, really wicked parts. And you know, he became, you know, really got into that whole style, right hand, you know, got into his own sort of thing, which no one else has kind of copy. So, you know, let's not forget about Keith Richards. Okay, thanks a lot for checking out this video. See you on the next coffee chat, and keep the comments coming. Take care, you all. See you soon. Bye.